Let's get started with our first news. The lightweight division could be heading toward a surprise matchup that very few people saw coming. During a recent appearance on Mike Bond's MMA Junkie podcast, Chael Sonnen shared his thoughts on what could be next for Paddy Pimblett, and one particular idea immediately stood out from the rest. According to Sonnen, there is a realistic path that could lead directly to Paddy facing Max Holloway in his next fight, and the timing may actually make perfect sense. Sonnen explained that if Justin Gaethje decides to retire, the UFC could find itself searching for the right names to compete for the top spot in the division. He pointed out that Max remains one of the biggest stars at lightweight and still has a very strong case to stay near the title picture despite recent setbacks. Several possible matchups were mentioned. Max against Ilya would certainly attract massive attention. Paddy against Ilya is another fight that fans have talked about for quite some time. Max versus Arman also carries major significance, while Paddy against Arman is a matchup that could easily be booked tomorrow. But once the division starts to take shape, another possibility begins to emerge. Paddy versus Max. Sonnen described it as the outside idea that almost nobody has discussed yet, despite the fact it could fit perfectly into the current landscape of the division. He also noted that Arman has repeatedly made it clear that his main priority is simply staying active, with or without a championship attached to the opportunity. With the lightweight picture constantly shifting, a showdown between Paddy and Max suddenly feels much more realistic than many expected just weeks ago. Move on to another news. Justin Gaethje may be sitting on top of the lightweight division, but one thing is becoming very clear. He has absolutely no interest in running things back with Paddy Pimblett. Paddy made plenty of noise at UFC 329 after putting away Benoit Saint Denis in impressive fashion and once again proving that he belongs among the division's biggest names. His performance grabbed attention across the MMA world, and many fans immediately started talking about the possibility of a rematch with the reigning champion. Justin, however, appears to be shutting that door before the conversation can even gain momentum. During a recent appearance on the Pat McAfee show, the topic came up after McAfee mentioned that Paddy had spoken about being inspired by Justin's stunning victory over Ilya at UFC Freedom 250. McAfee even suggested that the two fighters were somehow destined to meet inside the octagon once again. Justin immediately dismissed the idea. His response was quick, direct, and left very little room for interpretation. "No, no, no, no," Justin said while laughing off the suggestion. Instead of focusing on another fight with Paddy, Justin spoke about the impact his recent victory had on fighters across multiple combat sports. According to the lightweight champion, several athletes reached out to him or publicly spoke about how his performance motivated them. He mentioned Rafael Fiziev, a fighter who has shared the cage with him twice, saying that his White House victory helped rejuvenate his mindset and reminded him of what is possible in this sport. Justin also pointed to Anthony Joshua, who recently reflected on the dangers of combat sports and the importance of staying humble. Joshua explained that fighters can never forget how real fighting truly is and how quickly confidence can turn into disaster if respect for the sport disappears. For Justin, those reactions meant more than talk about another rematch. The reality is that his position has not changed. Even after defeating Paddy earlier this year, he showed very little interest in giving him another opportunity. Now, as retirement appears to be getting closer and his legacy already secured, there is even less incentive to revisit that matchup. As the undisputed lightweight champion, Justin seems focused on bigger opportunities and the final chapter of an already legendary career. Move on to another news. The UFC schedule continues to get busier, and several new matchups have officially been added across upcoming events. With UFC Fight Night heading to Oklahoma City this weekend, the promotion has reportedly finalized a late addition to the card just days before Fight Night. According to reports from Marcel Dorff, Damon Anderson is set to make his UFC debut against Ezra Elliott in what could turn into one of the most exciting sleeper fights on the entire event. What makes this matchup even more interesting is the fact that both fighters enter the octagon with undefeated records. Damon Anderson currently holds a perfect professional record of 5-0 and will be looking to make an immediate statement in his first appearance under the UFC banner. Standing across from him will be fellow American prospect Ezra Elliott, who brings an impressive 7-0 record into his promotional debut. With 2 unbeaten fighters putting everything on the line, expect fireworks in the featherweight division. The UFC has also announced a new addition to the upcoming Shanghai event on August 29th. Kai Asakura is officially scheduled to face Oriki Lang in another important matchup for both fighters. Kai enters the contest with momentum after scoring a TKO victory over Cameron Smotherman back in May, a performance that earned him a Performance of the Night bonus. Despite currently sitting at 1-2 inside the UFC, another victory could quickly push him back in the right direction. As for Oriki Lang, he currently holds a UFC record of 4-5 with 1 no contest. His last appearance came in May, where he suffered a second-round TKO loss against Cody Hayden, making this upcoming fight a crucial opportunity to bounce back. The UFC Paris card on September 5th has also received a fresh matchup. Reports indicate that Luis Felipe Diaz will make his return against Matthew Duclos. Diaz earned his UFC contract through the Contender Series and wasted no time making an impact, securing a first-round TKO victory in his promotional debut earlier this year. Meanwhile, Duclos receives another chance to prove himself on the biggest stage after failing to earn a contract during his first Contender Series appearance in 2024. Since then, he has put together an impressive 4-0 run, and the UFC is now rewarding that momentum with a second opportunity. Finally, there has been a change involving the heavyweight clash between Waldo Cortez Costa and Curtis Blades. The fight was originally expected to take place on the Los Angeles card in September, but it has now officially been moved to the Noche UFC event on September 12th. Move on to another news. The middleweight title picture continues to create controversy, and according to Duplessis, there may be a reason why Nasruddin Imavov keeps finding himself pushed further away from championship opportunities. Despite putting together an impressive run in the division, Imavov still has not secured the title shot many fans believe he deserves. The French contender is currently riding a 5-fight winning streak and has picked up victories over several major names along the way, including Israel Adesanya, Boralho, and Brendan Allen. On paper, that resume looks more than strong enough to justify a championship opportunity. However, the UFC appears to be moving in a different direction once again. Recent reports have suggested that the promotion is leaning toward booking a rematch between Sean Strickland and Khamzat instead of giving Imavov the opportunity to fight for gold. That decision has led to plenty of debate throughout the MMA community, with many questioning why one of the division's hottest contenders continues to be overlooked. During Media Day, Duplessis was asked for his opinion on the situation, and he offered an interesting theory. According to the former champion, the UFC may not have appreciated Imavov turning down a potential fight with Khamzat in the past. Duplessis explained that the promotion has always preferred seeing the best fighters compete against one another, regardless of friendships or personal relationships. From both a sporting and business perspective, the UFC wants the biggest and most competitive fights possible. He pointed to previous situations involving fighters refusing to face each other, and suggested that the promotion has never looked favorably upon those decisions. In Duplessis' view, Imavov's comments about not wanting to fight Khamzat because of their relationship may have hurt his standing with the company. He also noted that the two fighters do not train together regularly, are not teammates, and are not even from the same country, making the situation difficult for the UFC to understand from a matchmaking standpoint. Of course, that remains only a theory. Earlier this year, Imavov publicly stated that the fight with Khamzat never happened because Khamzat was dealing with injuries at the time and was unavailable to compete. There is also another factor that cannot be ignored. From a business perspective, a showdown between Strickland and Khamzat is simply a massive fight that would generate enormous attention and revenue for the promotion, making it one of the biggest middleweight matchups the UFC can currently make. Move on to another news. The stakes could not be much higher for Kamaru Usman as he prepares for one of the biggest fights of his career, and according to Duplessis, a loss could potentially signal the end of the road for the former welterweight king. There is no denying that this fight carries massive implications for both men involved, but perhaps even more so for Usman. The former champion is now approaching 40 years old, and despite one of the most dominant runs the welterweight division has ever seen, he has managed to record just a single victory since 2021. Time waits for nobody in this sport, and every fight at this stage of his career feels bigger than the last. Recently, while speaking with John Bernard Kairouz, Duplessis was asked whether he believed Usman would retire if he came up short this weekend. His answer was honest and direct. Probably, Duplessis said. However, he also made it clear that the manner of defeat would matter just as much as the result itself. According to Duplessis, everything depends on the kind of fight Usman goes through and the amount of damage he takes inside the cage. A close and competitive performance is very different from suffering a brutal beating, especially at this stage of a fighter's career. Duplessis also explained that Usman has already accomplished nearly everything a fighter could hope to achieve in mixed martial arts. He became champion, defended his title multiple times, built a legacy that will last forever, and established himself as one of the greatest welterweights in UFC history. In the eyes of many fans and analysts, the debate over the greatest welterweight of all time comes down to only two names: Kamaru Usman and GSP. According to Duplessis, Usman has absolutely earned his place in that conversation after years of dominance over one of the toughest divisions in the sport. Still, he believes the former champion understands that returning to the exact position he once held may simply no longer be realistic. That is why Duplessis believes there may only be one major goal left for Usman to chase: double champ status. Outside of adding a second title to his resume, there may be very little left for the former champion to prove. Despite all of that, Duplessis made it clear that sharing the cage with a fighter of Usman's caliber remains a tremendous honor and a challenge that demands complete respect, especially considering that the middleweight division is an entirely different game. Move on to another news. Conor is still dealing with the aftermath of his defeat to Max Holloway, but it appears the former two-division champion believes the official result should never have stood in the first place. Following the fight, Conor took to Instagram to share an update with fans regarding the injury that played a major role in the outcome of the contest. According to Conor, he was scheduled to receive the results of a medical scan on his leg, with more information expected shortly after. However, it was his second statement that immediately grabbed headlines throughout the MMA world. Conor made it very clear that he believes the result should be overturned and officially changed to a no contest. In his message, he stated that the fight should not remain on his professional record as a loss, and even suggested that all bets placed on the contest should be refunded. The comments quickly generated discussion among fans, especially considering the unusual circumstances surrounding the ending of the fight and the injury concerns that followed. For Conor, the situation appears straightforward. If an injury played a decisive role in preventing him from competing at his full ability, then his view, the result should be reconsidered. Whether the UFC or Athletic Commission shares that opinion is another matter entirely, but it is clear that Conor has not accepted the defeat quietly. Despite the disappointment surrounding the fight, Conor appeared to be in good spirits during his recent stay in Saudi Arabia. The former champion shared another video to his Instagram story showing a wholesome interaction with a young fan near a swimming pool. After introducing himself, the fan revealed that his name was Noah and that he was from Saudi Arabia. Conor immediately smiled and responded warmly to the young supporter. He joked that Noah was a great name and invited him over to take a video together. The interaction quickly turned lighthearted as Conor laughed and told the crowd to take a look at the young fan. He even joked that Noah looked like an Irishman and reminded him of one of his own relatives back home. Before ending the conversation, Conor wished the fan well and offered his blessings before sending him on his way. While discussions continue regarding the result against Max Holloway, one thing remains certain: Conor has no intention of moving on from the controversy quietly and appears determined to keep fighting for the outcome he believes is fair. Move on to another news. Alex Pereira is making his feelings very clear after the recent release of Michel Pereira from the UFC roster, and the former champion is not hiding his frustration over the situation. News of Michel's departure spread quickly throughout the MMA community, but according to Alex, this was not simply a case of poor performances or bad timing. In his view, the release traces back to controversy that surrounded Michel's previous appearance inside the octagon. That fight featured criticism aimed at referee Herb Dean, with many fans and fighters believing that Cher Bullet should have received point deductions during the contest. However, those penalties never came, and the fight continued without intervention from the official. Now, with Michel no longer part of the UFC roster, Alex believes the consequences of those decisions have become far too severe. Taking to Instagram, Alex shared highlights from Michel's UFC career and accompanied the video with a passionate message directed at the situation. According to Alex, if Michel had been released earlier under different circumstances, perhaps the decision could have been accepted. But in his opinion, seeing a fighter pay such a heavy price because of what he views as officiating mistakes is simply impossible to accept. Alex also explained that the UFC has always done everything within its power whenever he personally needed support from the organization, making it clear that his frustration was not aimed directly at the promotion itself. Instead, he expressed disappointment that situations like this continue to happen in the sport. He warned that many fighters choose to remain silent when controversies occur, but the same situation could eventually happen to anyone on the roster. According to Alex, today's victim could easily become tomorrow's teammate or training partner. He even stated that if athletes refuse to speak up when these issues arise, there may be little point asking others for help when they eventually face similar circumstances themselves. Alex went even further by saying it was unfortunate that not even the UFC seemed capable of controlling situations like these, adding that moments like this continue to damage the reputation of the sport. To emphasize his perspective, Alex pointed to the length of his own combat sports journey. He highlighted his kickboxing record of 40 fights with 33 victories, his MMA record of 16 fights with 13 wins, and even referenced his experience in Vale Tudo competition. For Alex, the issue goes beyond one fighter or one result. In his eyes, protecting athletes from situations like this is essential for the future credibility of the sport.